Yesterday's video notes were not supposed to be difficult, but okay, let me get you emotionally prepared, okay? Tonight's video notes, what we're doing tomorrow in class, it's kind of going to blow your mind, okay? It's a little bit intense. It's a lot of bit confusing. So please, for those of you who normally just kind of breeze through your video notes and just copy mindlessly, please listen. Please try to actually learn it, because if you don't, you're going to be so lost, and it is so important. Okay, so what we're doing, or what we learned yesterday, was something called factoring. Okay, well, why are we factoring? Like, why does it even matter? What's the point of all of this? So let me tell you something. You don't need to write this down, but just look, okay? So you don't need to write anything down right now. So back in 6th grade, right, you learn like x plus 2 equals 7, and you solve for x. So you minus 2 on both sides, boom, you found x, yay, that's my answer. You were able to solve for x in 6th grade or 5th grade or whatever. So you were able to solve this. Well, now we have harder problems. Now instead of an x, now you have, like in 7th grade, you had like 2x plus 7 equals 10x minus 4. We made it a little bit more difficult. You still had to solve for x, blah, blah, blah. You got x equals something. You're still able to do that. Now we're making we're making our problem even more difficult. Instead of just a normal x to the first power, now we're going to have x to the second power. So now we're saying, here's your equation. Please solve this. Well, if you used these rules, like opposite operations and everything, there's no way you can solve for x, because you have an x squared and an x. Like, how do you solve for x when you have a squared and 1 to the first power? So that's why, what? Here you go. That's why we have to do something called factoring. In order to factor, and I totally, here, I just made up a random problem. Now this works. So remember what we did yesterday? So if you factor, so this is 7, this is 8. 7 times 1 is 7. 7 plus 1 is 8. You have x plus 7, x plus 1. If we factor this, now I can solve for x. Remember what we did a couple days ago? Set this equal to 0, set this equal to 0, and now I can have my two answers when my problem looks like this. Okay, that's the point. The point of factoring and doing this stuff is so that when my problem gets harder, I'm allowed to still solve for x, because I can't solve for x with this type of problem the way that I learned it in 5th grade and 6th grade and 7th grade. It doesn't work. Okay, so that's the point of doing all this. So let me kind of reteach you what you learned yesterday. Okay, so let's factor. First of all, when we factor, we have to make sure that it's written in standard form. And this is, right, to the second, to the first, and then nothing. So this is in the right format. So let's factor. So the way that we factor, it's a trick, okay? I actually did not learn it this way when I was in 8th grade algebra, but it's so much easier. So just use this trick. Whenever they say to factor, I call this big X, okay? Let's use it the big X way. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, so in this X, the top, you see how there's like 4 sections here where you can put stuff in? The top thing is where you always put the last number. Okay, so the last number is 12, so you put it on top. The bottom one is where you put the second number. So the second number was 13, so you put that on the bottom. So now this is what you have to kind of think, and it takes a little bit of mental math. You have to think, okay, think of 2 numbers that multiply to 12, but it adds up to 13. So like 6 times 2 is 12, but if I were to write 6 times 2, that doesn't make sense, right? Because 6 plus 2 doesn't equal 13. So, okay, so like do 3 times 4. Well, 3 times 4 equals 12, but 3 plus 4 is not 13. So I kind of have to like go back to 3rd grade, think of all my multiples. What times what is 12? Owen? 12 and 1. So sometimes it's as simple as your ones. 12 times 1 is 12. And 12 plus 1 is 13. So Owen said it was a positive 12 and a positive 1. That's why their plus is before. So when I factor this, hi Emily, my final answer is going to be these 2 numbers that I just thought of right here. So it's going to be x plus 12. It's a plus because Owen said it was a positive 12. And then x plus 1, it's a plus because Owen said it was a positive 1. And boom, I just factored it. I'm done. Later on, I can solve. Like solving it, my answer would be negative 12 and negative 1, but I'm just factoring right now. Hey, Sounds good. Thank you. Bye. Okay, so let's do number 2. Okay, so for number 2, here's my problem. So I'm going to factor it. So factoring means do big X. Remember, when I do big X, the only way I can do this is to make sure first that my problem is written in standard form. So yes, it is. Second to the second power, to the first power, and then nothing. So it's written in the right order, because sometimes I have to rearrange them. Okay, so the top number, does anyone remember? What do I put up here? 40. Okay, what's the bottom number? Negative. Thank you for saying negative and not positive. It makes a huge difference. Negative 14. Okay, because it's a minus 14. Okay, so you got to do some mental math. What times what is 40, but it adds to negative 14. Grayson? Negative 10 and negative 4. It might take you a few tries. And honestly, if you don't know, this is what I would do if I were you. I would say, okay, 40 divided by 2, 40 divided by 3, 40 divided by 4, 40 divided by 5, and just kind of go through my math facts like that and see what I can do. So like, yeah, 5 times 8, but that doesn't add up to negative 14. Negative 5 and negative 8 also don't add up to 14. So Grayson is right. Negative 10 times negative 4 is positive 40, but negative 10 plus negative 4 is negative 14. So these are my two numbers in my answer. So the way I write it is x minus 10, because Grayson said negative 10, and then x minus 4 because Grayson said negative 4. And boom, I just factored it. That's my answer. Okay, let's do this last one before I do some of your level work with you. Okay, so make sure first of all that it's in the right form. Yes, it is, to the second power, to the first power, and then nothing. So it's in the right form. Okay, somebody online, will you type or unmute yourself and tell us, somebody online, what number do I write on top?
54.
Positive or negative?
Negative.
Thank you, because it's a minus, right? So it's a negative 54. Guys, the negatives and the positives make the huge difference. Somebody other than Kip on the bottom, online, what number do I write? Thank you, Brooke. 3. Positive 3, because you see how it's a plus 3. Okay, so think about it. You might have to, like, if you're not good with your multiplication facts, you need your calculator, I guess. What times what is negative 54, but it adds up to positive 3? Sienna, do you think you know?
Negative 9 and 6.
Negative 9 and positive 6. So notice how she said negative 9, positive 6. So let's see. Negative 9 times positive 6 is negative 54. But Jack, what did we do wrong?
You can switch the negative 9 to a negative 6 instead.
Yeah. So do you see how, like, if I said negative 9 and positive 6, that would give me a negative 3? So silly mistake. Positive 9, negative 6. And again, it seems like such a small mistake, but it makes a huge difference in your answer, right? So positive 9 times negative 6 is negative 54. 9 plus negative 6 is positive 3. So yes, that is right. These are my two answers. So when I write it, I have x plus 9 because it's positive 9, x minus 6 because it's negative 6. So some of you might be like, how do I double check that I even got this right? Well, how you can double check is just FOIL your answer or distribute it. X squared minus 6x plus 9x minus 54. Combine those, x squared plus 3x minus 54. Oh, look, I got the original problem. So if you really want to double check your answer, you can FOIL it or distribute it or do the box method, and you would end up with your problem. Any questions so far? Okay, let's go to your level work. So for this one, it says for 1 through 12 factor, but you also have to solve for 10, 11, and 12. So you're just doing, like, for numbers 1 through 12, big X, big X, big X, big X. This is how you're showing your work, okay? So you're not just writing the answer. You're showing your work by filling in this X. Okay. This is the big X, not like don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Okay, this is me just setting up your work for you. Okay, but then it says for 10, 11, and 12, you have to solve it. Okay, so let's just solve let's do number 11. Let's solve it. Well, hold on. To solve it, I have to factor it first. Okay, so we're doing number 11 together. All right, so I have Q, and honestly, I'm going to change them all to X's because I don't know. Or you can leave them as Q's. It doesn't matter. All right. So what's wrong with this problem first? I can't do anything. What's wrong with it? Read.
The X and the jump on the letter to the second column is first.
Yeah, do you see how this is written? Like the problem is written in the wrong format. So I have to rearrange this and write it in standard form first. So actually I have Q squared plus Q minus 56. Now it's written in the right form.
Interruption, husband Ben. At this time, please make sure you have posted your attendance in Skyward Teachers and then respond to the Google form sent by Ms. Gonzalez. Thank you.
Okay, why don't you try this by yourself, okay? So all of you try it by yourself. Now that we are, we rearranged it, please try. And